So much for joining us today on Coffee With. Not only will you notice that we're at a different location, we're not at the coffee shop today, but we're at Be Creative, which is just up the street on Washington at 1108 Washington. But we also have a new experience today. We're Skyping our guest in. So we're going to be working out the little bugs as we go, since it's a new experience for Chris and me. And our guest today, I'm very excited about it. It's Dr. Howard Hooper, who was a college friend of mine. And Howard, I think we decided it had been almost 31 years since we spoke.
30 years, that's right. I can't believe that. I'm not that old, Robyn, though. So I don't know.
Well, I am. The difference is I look like it and you don't.
Oh, you're kind.
Okay, so Howard, you and I went to college together at Louisiana College, and since then you and your wife have spent many years working in the ministry in some form or fashion. So just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you've been doing, and then I want to get into what we actually want to talk about today.
Okay, great. Well, I graduated from Louisiana College with Robyn in 1983. And after college, I actually taught school for a couple of years there in Alexandria, Louisiana. After a couple of years, I realized that I didn't really want to teach long term, so I decided to try something different, and I signed up for a program called the Journeyman Program, which was a 2-year missionary program where you go overseas and spend 2 years and work in missions. So I signed up and was accepted, and actually spent 2 years in Panama, in the country of Panama. And it was there that I met my wife, actually. She was also serving, and little funny story is that she's actually from the Bronx, New York, and I'm from a little small rural community in Louisiana. So country meets the city for sure. But we got together and realized that we both had a common love for missions, and the Lord has taken us in many different places since then. We've actually served in Panama again a second time. We've lived in Hawaii, where we served for 3 years. After Hawaii, we actually served for 8 years in Honduras. And then after Honduras, we actually made the move back to the United States, and we lived in Central Florida, where we're living now. And for 11 years, I served as an associate pastor in a local church. And then 3.5 years ago, actually, I started working with Orphans Heart, which what I'm doing now, which is an organization of the Florida Baptist Children's Home. We're the International Childcare program. Basically, we work overseas. So I'm back in foreign missions, even though I don't live overseas. I travel back and forth to different countries.
Okay, Howard, well, tell us, I know you're working with a program called Orphans Heart, and I went to your website and looked up some information. Y'all serve in what, 8 different countries? Is what's on your website updated? Is that correct?
That's correct. Eight countries.
Okay, and so you and I ran across, kind of to catch everybody up, you and I ran across each other through mutual friends, of course, on nothing else but Facebook, and kind of sort of reconnected, not to any great extent, and I found out what you were doing and was just so interested in it, particularly in the new malnutrition center that you provide services to down in Guatemala. So tell me a little bit about that program and your involvement in it, what your responsibilities are, and what y'all do at that center.
Okay, Guatemala is an incredible ministry that we have. It's basically a hospital for malnourished children. Now, these children that are in the malnutrition center are not orphans. They're not true orphans where they don't have parents, but they're social orphans. And when we say social orphans, that means that they are without parents for whatever reason, whether they're foster children here in the States, we consider foster children social orphans, or different things like that. These children come to the center and they stay anywhere from 6 months to 2 years until they are nursed back to health, until they are healthy enough to be reunited with their families. And it's a wonderful ministry as we bring in, right now we have 75 children that are under our care. They come into this center and they live there. They leave their parents, and you can imagine as a parent how hard it would be to leave your child. But it's the best thing they can do for this child, because otherwise, unfortunately, they probably wouldn't live much longer if they weren't brought into the center. They come in malnourished, so you can imagine what that would look like for many of the children. But it's amazing, and in just a matter of a few weeks, how their body starts to heal, and they start recovering, and there's sparkle in their eye again. They're laughing, they're smiling, there's interaction, and so as we see children coming back to a healthy state, then it's after that when they return to their parents. And be reunited as a family again.
Well, I just want to go over some of the statistics that I pulled off your website, and I'm sure that when Chris edits this, he's going to go and pull this off. It says it's estimated that there are more than 370,000 orphans in Guatemala. So are this number, is this an actual, when you talk about social orphans versus what we actually define as an orphan, are all these numbers lumped together? I mean, that sounds like a very large number to me. We're pushing close to 500,000 children that are orphans in Guatemala.
Yeah, that number is correct. So that is true orphans there. That 370,000 is what they say are true orphans in Guatemala. So you add on top of that the social orphans. So it is close to 500,000 orphans in Guatemala.
That's astounding.
Yes, it's shocking when you look at the numbers. It really is.
And then it says approximately 5,000 homeless children live on the streets of Guatemala City due to abandonment and the effects of poverty. And then I want to skip down with that, and it says 53% of Guatemala's population lives in poverty and 13% in extreme poverty. So I would imagine that contributes significantly to the malnutrition issue in this country.
There's still a large indigenous population that live in Guatemala. And due to that fact, that's why the numbers are so high for now malnourished children. Believe it or not, for children under 5 years of age, Guatemala has the largest number of malnourished children in that category for children under the age of 5. And it's due to that indigenous population. Many of them still live up in rural communities, up in the mountains where there's no running water, no electricity, and they have no means to provide for their family. And somehow, through word of mouth, they hear about the malnutrition center and they bring their children to this location that gives the children, literally gives them life. And they're able to be reunited with their families after.
You know, part of what I'm not clear about, and you and I haven't had any discussions. I mean, you and I haven't talked before today except just messaging on Facebook. But once you get the children after they've been at the center and they become stable, then you're sending them back into an environment where they became malnourished to begin with. So is part of your program to work with these? I mean, what do you do about that? I know you can't fix every problem in Guatemala, but you're sending them back where they're at high risk to become malnourished again, it seems to me.
Yes, that's a very good question, very good point. And actually part of our program is educating the parents. We have a social worker that works on staff at the center. And part of her responsibility is to teach the parents not only about nutrition, but about everyday life and living and how to prepare food and the correct foods to eat and financial advice as well. She's able to teach them. Most of these people have no education, and so they have no idea. They just don't know what that means. And interesting enough is that the problem is not a lack of food for these children. It's the nutrition value in the food that they eat. So if you think of a daily diet or a common diet of Guatemalan, corn tortillas, and they eat lots of tortillas. There's not a whole lot of nutritional value in that tortilla. Also, they have white rice. Again, not a whole lot of nutritional value. They probably can get some black beans. That's a staple there in Guatemala. So when they can get black beans and they can throw some black beans on the rice, that gives them a little bit of protein. But meat, very little meat. They don't eat hardly any meat at all. They use lots of salt because that helps supposedly curb the hunger. So they put lots of salt on. And another interesting point is that they drink lots of Coca-Cola. Instead of water, they drink Coca-Cola because it's cheaper. Water's not potable, and so they can't afford to buy bottled water or purified water, but they can afford to buy Coca-Cola.
I know part of what your job is that you have mission teams from the United States that go to Guatemala and these other countries where y'all serve. So tell me what these mission teams do when y'all go down there.
We have, to Guatemala, we have over 30 mission teams a year that come and love on babies. And that's what we tell our people. When you're interested in coming and serving in Guatemala, if you can hold the baby, then you can come on a mission trip. And literally, that's what we do each day. We love on these children. We have children anywhere from 3 days old to 12 years old. As I mentioned, 75 children are in the center. And so there's lots of loving to be done on those children while we're there. But basically, we take care of those children during the day with the needs that they have, whether it's bathing, dressing them, fixing their hair, feeding them snack, feeding them lunch, recreation. Of course, we do Bible study, Bible stories, and recreation. Music, we like to sing. They love to sing, of course. And so we are there helping the nannies that they have that take care of these children. And so it's a full day as we begin each day with those children. By the end of the day, you are exhausted because you've taken care of these children, but it's a good exhaustion, as if you know what I'm talking about, that you have done a lot of good work. We truly believe that the human touch we truly believe that the human touch plays an important role in that recuperation of the children. When we don't have teams there are 75 children and 5 nannies that look after those children. So you can imagine how hard that is for those nannies. And so when we have teams that are there, we can help those nannies. So we can get them out of their cribs and we can hold them, we can play with them, we can interact with them. And so that interaction and that human touch is so important in that healing process.
About how many weeks a year do you have mission teams down there?
We have 30 weeks a year that we have mission teams at the center in Guatemala. We would love to have a mission team every week, 52 weeks a year, and we're working on that. But right now it's average about 30 a year that we have at the center.